This is a podcast on how to grow on Twitch. If you're a Twitch streamer, if you're not a Twitch streamer, you can still learn a heck of a lot on how to grow in life because we have absolutely wonderful people in here and a very positive environment that you're able to take an introspective look into both of our minds and see what works for you, what doesn't. And I always say maybe you can learn a thing or two from this podcast, whether you're just a person trying to get through life or whether you're a Twitch streamer in general. This is still beneficial to each and every person that watches because it's an introspective look on not just a positive streamer, but a positivity mindset when it comes to individuality. If you can learn something or feel inspired, then at the end of the day, it's all worth it to me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Java Juicecast number 9. I'm very grateful that I could have you on the show. I would classify your streams, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would classify your streams as both upbeat and a little quirky and funny.
There's like a huge layer of toxicity, but you know, my award-winning personality can help just shimmy through it.
So you work a lot on your streams with voiceovers, correct?
Yeah, I would say every now and then when I can, I try to incorporate voiceovers and just voice impressions, to be honest.
Where did that interest how long has that interest been with you? Where did that stem from?
For voiceover, I think it really stemmed from just being in high school and watching anime and just the amount of emotion that people can convey just through their voice without any, like interaction with their body. It's just really, it was interesting to me. And over the long course of it, like I've kind of like looked at it as like something that's kind of like a way to help, like, like if I'm having like a bad day and I watch an anime about like My Hero Academia or like with Deku or somebody and like just their voice carrying the character and how much emotional toil to go through. To me, it's just like, it's just somewhat of inspiring and just be able to see like you can do so much with something as just speaking in a sense.
And I noticed you did a TikTok as of recently. I think it was The Legend of Zelda. And there was a troll of some kind on there, and you developed it into your own ideas and personality, which I found interesting, which was like an evil Marge Simpson.
Yeah, so it was actually Shin Megami Tensei, and there was like this broker who sounded like a demonic Marge Simpson. So I'm like, all right, let's try rolling with this and just see how it works. And I'm like, oh, this is actually hilarious to me, if anything.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool how you sort of put that connection into it and then you made the voice. Some people might not know how to do that, but if you can take us through the steps of how you go about that.
It's really weird. So I was actually telling my wife about this. I don't want to butcher his name, but are you familiar with the show Invader Zim?
Yes.
So the main character who does Zim, he does a ton of other voices, but I was listening to one of his interviews and he was like, there's always a call to certain characters that he voices. Like when he did The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy for Billy, if you knew about that, he did to Billy as well. He like his call to like get back into that voice is to do Billy's laugh. I kind of do a similar thing. So like if you ever notice when I do a Joe Swanson impression, it always starts with hey better, because like it's just such an easy transition to like get into the voice. And when I heard that character had like that raspy sound that like Marge Simpson did, I'm like, you know what, that kind of reminds me of that a little bit. So just take like a little bit of Marge Simpson, a little bit of the demonic thing from Shin Megami, put it in the Ninja Blender 1000, which I just got at the door today, and you have this. And it just led into like, oh, let's roll with this. Let's blend this together to something either funny or cringe, but it succeeds or fails.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes cringe content is the best content, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So let's get into your streaming career. How long have you been streaming in general?
I don't want to say the word, but it started pretty much a few months before everything started going down from, the pandemic sort of thing.
Right.
So almost 2 years now.
How many days do you stream?
I usually stream 4 days a week, which mainly revolved around my work schedule, but I just kind of like adapted it. So it's Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at 9 p.m. Pacific time, just because that was the perfect time for me to kind of like, push my roommates away from the laundry room so I could be able to have full access and full control to it. Just a lot of like, I do a lot of JRPGs, but I also do some card-based game content. But I also just am a variety streamer as well. Unfortunately, I'm not much of like, a completionist or a speedrunner, but
Hmm.
I just enjoy playing games and hanging out with people mainly at the end of the day.
And why do you say unfortunately to that?
I don't know, like I guess it's just like how I'm kind of like wired. Usually like I'm just like, well, there's these things that I do, but I'm not like a specialist in these sort of categories. Which I know a lot of people tend to like really like watching, speedrunners, glitch people, stuff like that, but
Hmm.
to me, like, and again, I don't know how you can seriously do this, but like for certain platinuming some games or just like doing like for example like your Hollow Knight platinum,
Hmm.
like to me that just sounds really stressful. Like just
Hmm.
being a completionist or a speedrunner, even worse, is just like insanely stressful because everything has to be perfect, otherwise you just start
Right.
from the ground zero again.
Right. Right. So I have the initial thoughts of going into it, perfecting the game in general. So my thoughts on it are already going to be stressful. Like I appreciate the tedious version of like what a platinum hunt is. So I go into a platinum trophy run already knowing like the challenging, stressful things that I'm gonna do. So it kind of helps to ease the stress a little bit.
What is that Hollow Knight mode where you cannot die once, otherwise it resets your entire game? Have you done that mode yet?
Yeah, Steel Soul mode. I did it about a month ago.
Not all heroes wear capes. That's all I can say.
So let's talk about your games, for instance. So you had mentioned you do JRPGs. Do you have a mainstream game that you play?
When I first started streaming, I didn't have like, the Elgato capture card, so I was relegated to whatever I had on Steam. And when I started streaming, that's when I built my first gaming PC, streaming PC, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
So I never really had much of a Steam library to get the ground running. So I ultimately ended up playing. You've seen me play Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links before, so that's kind of like
Yes.
where I started from. Little fun fact from Metallic history: before Twitch, myself and one of my best friends at the time, we had a Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTube channel, which we actually did pretty good. Like we actually had like I don't like talking numbers because numbers are good to kind of like know how many people are checking your stuff out, but to me like the viewer retention engagement's a more important factor of that. But like we had like 353,000 views overall from the channel as a whole
Hmm.
before eventually like it just got taken down. I kind of like well, I already did a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff like years, so let's just slowly bring that into Duel Links, which is like Yu-Gi-Oh but a little bit more of a slower format per se. So
Yeah.
that's ultimately where I've started and kind of like what's been consistently going through the game
Yeah.
because it's just such a fun time and the Duel Links community is fantastic on Twitch. There's been phenomenal people like streamers, even just the viewers in the Duel Links community that have been either very supportive. That might be like, hey, dude, great job getting like, Legend or, King of Games, which are like rankings, kind of like prestige, I guess, in like Call of Duty.
Hmm.
And even just some of the streamers that I've kind of like become friends with, like they're just super supportive and just really great people in general.
Yeah.
I've not had a single problem with the Duel Links community, and that's honestly really good because we all know how the internet may have some trolls here and there, but honestly, I don't think I've really had that problem with Duel Links, and I'm very fortunate for that too.
Would you say that Duel Links is probably the most positive engagement that you've had on the Twitch platform, or is there any other game that would top that?
I mean, Duel Links is definitely up there, but I've had some great experiences. Have you played Earthbound before?
I've definitely seen a lot of gameplay, yes, but I've never played it.
So Earthbound is something special. Like the game itself is phenomenal, but like because of like how the game is, like a lot of people really appreciate it and just love it.
Hmm.
I've had some really good engagements with that game just based on that alone. I gotta say, I also had a great engagement experience with Twitch as a whole, also with Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age, just because again, it's such a huge JRPG
Yeah.
but it encompasses so much and just covers so much emotional depth and detail in the story.
And what are you playing currently?
I am playing Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne 3, the remaster,
He
which
loves
is where
that.
demonic Marge Simpson comes into play. That's always gonna be Duel Link Sundays. Usually for Thursdays, I try to keep it open to like multiplayer games so I can play like, with people in Twitch and chat, like, hey, who's down for Among Us Thursday? Who's down for Mario Kart? So
Hmm.
I try to keep that day like open for the community. And Friday, it's whatever. It's like usually an older retro game.
Yeah.
Recently, I just finished Golden Sun, which is another fantastic JRPG. Right now, since we finished it last night, actually, we've moved on to The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past because, as critically acclaimed as it is, I've actually never gone through and played it.
Yeah.
So I had to fix that really quick. And Twitch was like, Chow was like, "You've never played this before?" I'm like, No,
Yeah.
no. I've heard it's great. So I'm like, all right, let's see how great this is. Let's see how good this holds up, Nintendo. Have you played like Breath of the Wild or
Oh,
anything like that?
I love Breath of the Wild. Yeah.
Link to the Past so far, it does a great job of just kind of like plopping you into the world. It gives you an idea of where to go, but you're like, oh, I want to go explore all
Mm.
this stuff. So you kind of end up doing that, just get lost into it. Kind of like the same like how Earthbound kind of did it as well. Back then, like, open world games were kind of like touched upon, but I guess now that people just realize truly how immersive and huge they can really be, they're definitely getting more popular in the mainstream. Such games like, Cyberpunk and everything else like that. I heard The Witcher 3 is really good, but
So did
I
I.
haven't gotten to The Witcher 3 yet. One of the things I actually do before I start streaming games on Twitch, like I'll actually sometimes like look through my backlog, collect a few games that look pretty interesting and fun, and also cool for chat. And I'll like try to like see because there's a website called howlongtobeat.com which tells you how long it takes to beat a game. And
Mm.
sometimes I'll even look at that like, okay, this might be pretty cool for, so many streams just because usually my streams don't like last more than 3 hours. So I try to choose things that don't take up too much time. For every like, God of War PS4, I might end up trying to stream Dragon Quest, which took me almost 80 hours to complete.
So, is there any moments on stream that you could define as your favorite moments?
Nope. No, I'm just kidding. Sometimes I'll also get into the habit of streaming like very, very obscure Yu-Gi-Oh spin-off, right? Konami once had the idea like, hey, let's take a paper card game and let's turn it into like an RTS strategic civilization game. Like, you know what, this sounds really weird, but let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. I was playing it and I couldn't believe how many people had such fond memories of it, even though a lot of people did not like it. And honestly, I can see why. It's a very fixed pace game.
Yeah.
You have to be very strategic of what you do, when you do it, how you do it. Otherwise, you're gonna die. Due to that game specifically, I was able to meet some really cool people in just the Yu-Gi-Oh community itself here on Twitch. Just the fact that like we all have like these really good connections with very obscure games, which is really really cool. 2 months ago or so, I actually quit my job and I still haven't actually found a new job that I want to delve into just yet. And I think like immediately afterwards, like, people who like, started coming to my afternoon streams were just super supportive, really cool, and just started like having people coming in just like hey, go check out this person. Like just the fact that the community will outreach their own communities to help people like foster new relationships and find new content creators
Hmm.
is really cool. Actually, one of the people in your chat, I believe right now,
Mm.
Wolf and Fox, like does that all the time, just like trying to get all of us like kind of like see some really cool content creators.
Yeah.
And just that like positive like outreach is just really, it's really nice. It's really wholesome. It gives you all the warm fuzzy feelings.
Having the support of other people, also like the positive support and being able to befriend others. That's what content creation is about, and that's how you get ahead a little bit, and that's how you create relationships with people and help other people get ahead. And it's about putting yourself there. It's about putting yourself out there, but also helping other people and assisting other people and helping them climb as well.
It's a good form of networking, but not only that, even like some of the other like content creators I've seen, like they have some like really cool ideas. And I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I'm going to, of course, with their permission, ask if I can borrow like some of the ideas and implementations they do on their stream. Like, cause like
Yeah.
not only that point like of networking, but you're also growing together too,
Right.
which is amazing.
Right. So yeah, amongst developing those relationships, you're also going into their stream and seeing what they're putting on the table, and now you're interested in putting some of like what they have and making it your own and putting it on your table too. What are some of the core values that you pride yourself on stream?
The inclusion, like as you can tell, like I'm very like I make chat like a pretty good focus on my streams. Out of all the people who are streaming insert game title here, you've come to show like you've come to my stream, so I definitely want to make sure that you feel welcome. I appreciate you. Try to talk to you about your day, how things are going, follow up on previous conversations, like hey, you told me you got a new job, how is the new job going on? So the inclusivity and just keeping it together as like a family, that's super important to me. Some of the other core values I do try to facilitate as well, just making sure that everybody is comfortable. Every now and then, like you might have some person coming in, let me type in something like this and it'll get everybody upset. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll give you a warning, but like if you keep it up, then because like who knows if they don't know the expectations,
Hmm.
so you got to facilitate like set the expectations. They still forego. It's like okay, we shall have the mods do the band hammer. So like just making sure everybody is comfortable. Another thing that I've also been finding out too is like we like growing together. Like there's actually been several times where chat might start talking about a video game. Like even might be one or two people and then just like, start talking about it, get more information about it, than just checking it out. So
Yeah.
kind of like sharing each other's interests that might be either similar or different. It's just really good because again, it's like it's not like cultural diffusion, but it's like gamer diffusion. Like somebody's like, "Hey, I know you said you like Stardew Valley. Go check out this one game called Rune Factory 4 Special Edition for the Switch."
Yeah.
Just some of the main core values, just like the inclusivity of everybody here acting together, making sure everybody's comfortable,
Hmm.
and just kind of like sharing about what we, interest in just growing together as a family.
Some of the core values that you would like your community to have, does that differ at all?
Sometimes it does. Ultimately, everybody's gonna have their own different perspective and personality. We just have to understand and cope with that. And that's truly one of the best and the worst things this world has. Is that there's so many differences, but just because it's not like, it's different doesn't mean we can't, embrace it.
When community members come into a stream, I think one of the number one words between a streamer's perspective of vocalizing their voice to the members and the members' perspective of vocalizing to the streamer, I think the main thing for everything to come together is compromise.
Yes,
Being able to as a streamer let people know that you're willing to budge a little bit upon their expectations, and but you need them to do the same.
exactly. I compromise is a perfect word for it because yeah, it can't just be like, I take from you. It has to be kind of like, I give you this, you give me this, like a give and take thing. Ultimately, that's like what leads to compromise and just leads to the best outcome possible.
Yeah, and you were speaking about keeping the community engaged and treating it like a family. And I think the only real way to do that is to give in a little bit to what everyone wants, and vice versa. What everyone wants, like they have to give in a little bit to like what you're streaming and how you stream and your personality. But without that connection, there's a little bit of a gap, and then you start to like that's where you start to lose things. But if you
Yeah.
keep everything compromised together between the chat and you, I think that's like the number one tip. Since you run a very upbeat and sometimes funny, no, I'm just kidding, like all the time funny. What sort of life lessons have led you into creating the character MetallicAerox?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly,
I don't come with anything less, baby.
I just never expected a question like this because, like, ultimately, let's just say Metallic and myself, like, we're essentially the same person. Like, I think the only difference really is that, would you believe if I told you I'm very much an introvert outside of streaming?
Yes.
All right, I mean that's fair. I think I said it on record a few times, but like I think it's just because I've been on camera for so many years and I'm kind of like used to explaining my thoughts or just like talking out loud
Hmm.
that like it helped me adopt like this streaming persona. I'm very comfortable usually streaming, just like constantly being used to being on camera, scripting out stuff, just getting familiar with how to like to articulate my internal thoughts and
Hmm.
in a more kind of like intriguing fashion sense of thing.
Yeah.
And I guess some of the teachings of Uncle Iroh about positivity have been a defining factor. Like, I don't think I'm on juicy absolute positivity level, but we're making Uncle Iroh proud from the Avatar series.
My statement about yes, I think you're an introvert. That wasn't like a judgmental statement towards you. That was more of a statement towards like I think a lot of streamers are in that boat. I think there are a lot of streamers because would you believe that I am too?
I mean, you might have a little bit of introvertness, but I think you might be a little bit more extrovert.
So I
But I
gain
think it could be a little bit of both.
so I gain a lot of my energy in my own time alone.
Hmm.
More than you may think. Yeah. So I enjoy things like reading, playing video games alone here, going on walks solo. Like going to the park and just thinking. Yeah, I like to do that a lot. Yeah, a lot more. Like that's where I gain energy as opposed to someone who might go out to a party and gain energy off of other people, which would be more extroverted, right?
Yeah, like I feel like just having like even if you're doing a face cam or not, it's still like it just takes out. the in-person aspect. I think that's like what gets to me the most, like in a
Hmm.
positive way.
Hmm.
Like again, people usually dread call center like jobs. Usually, like I'm like, oh, I'm cool with that, just because it's not, it's indirect. It's not direct,
Hmm.
which I feel like a lot of the times, like where the whole anxiety, social pressures might settle in the most.
It helped me understand a little bit when you said about face cams.
I guess like there's just like a barrier for me
Hmm.
where I don't have to worry about being in person, but like people can still see who I am. So like I don't want to say it adds like a veil, but it just adds like a reassurance, like they're like it's just me, but they could still see me in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If you put me in a room with like 20 other people, like let's say I had to facilitate a meeting
Hmm.
and they just give me the content. Like
Hmm.
if I could do it like, over here, totally fine. Like I can switch like, whatever hats I need to like to facilitate the event. But if you
Yes.
throw me into a person, like all eyes are on you,
Yeah.
like you have to like you're like kind of like, well, they can see like, whatever. It just adds like a different pressure, like you can feel it,
Hmm.
kind of like the whole atmosphere, like what you mentioned, like with like if you're at a lone home or like in a party with people, like there's definitely a different pressure, even if you're not actively talking to the party goers. Like you could totally just feel like either a sense of like energy or just uncomfortability.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that uncomfortability might come more so lack of energy, would you say?
Hmm. Oh,
Hmm.
absolutely. I honestly go on walks almost every day for like 30 to 45 minutes, just listening to like lo-fi music or just thinking or just listening to music in general. And that's usually like when I get my best ideas out for like, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, whatever,
Right.
versus being at a party where I'm just kind of like thinking like it's been 2 minutes, we can leave in 48 minutes. And then just like counting it down, just like making awkward conversation. If it's natural small talk, like I'm all down for it. But
Yeah.
like if it's forced small talk, it's
Force. Yeah.
it's like the most awkward thing ever. Like I remember I was actually at like a Thanksgiving like family function, and this was like the first time I kind of got to like meet my wife's extended family, and they're
Hmm.
fantastic people. But like I just had like nothing to like really talk about. I was just like sitting there for like almost like standing to like doing idle chit chat for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. I mean, you have glasses. Do you play guitar? No, that's a weird thing just to ask out of nowhere. If it's forced, it's weird, but if like it's natural, then it's totally fine. Natural small talk can sometimes it's more rare to be genuine in a sense.
Speaking of energy and sort of like introvertedness, does any of that ever affect you while you go on stream? Because you had defined that it's there's like a barrier now, but people can still see you, but it's not as intimidating as like a room full of people and that pressure's on you. But does that pressure ever come on stream at all?
No, not really.
Right.
Usually like when I like, hit live, hit record or whatever, like that's like where Metallic, jumps on. But like
Hmm.
let's say I'm either having a bad day outside of streaming or like because I'm also very much a person where I kind of absorb the emotional energy from like my surroundings. So like it's let's say like my current surroundings is like not the like there's like a lot of like depression or like anxiety in the air. Like that might affect
Hmm.
me a little bit to the point where I'm just like I could go streaming,
Hmm.
but I could also lay in my bed. It's like a toss in the coin. But
Yeah.
no, like streaming for me is just kind of like a respite for all the chaos that's been happening in 2020 and 2021. While like the main factors that might prevent me from streaming itself would just be my own things going on outside of the Twitch bubble.
Streaming is sort of like a positivity a sister to you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Get to hang with some of the coolest people that I've ever met. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it's something that I'm just excited to do. And also like I can't really see much downside to it.
Hmm.
Like I get to hang out with some really cool people. I get to play games that I generally enjoy.
Yeah.
I get to meet some new people. Sometimes we get raided. Sometimes we get to raid somebody, make their day. To me, that just means a lot to it. Because like there's like actually been a few people that we've like my channel has raided, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like I've been having a horrible day, stuff like that, blah 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 blah." And then like the community gathers like just positively lift them up, maybe even start a hype train and stuff to get them off track.
Hmm.
Little trade pun there because I love puns.
Off
Um,
track.
just streaming in general has been such a positive thing for me that I'm very, very thankful for my community and what it's been becoming.
What pushes you on a day when you might feel like that coin flip wins, where you just want to go back to bed, but you push yourself to stream? Like, what is going on in your mind whenever that happens?
It's the same thing that I generally do when I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to work out. I don't want to, do this or that. Like I'll usually do a pros and cons list in my head.
Yeah.
And 9 out of 10 times, it's like, okay, so if I do this, like there's so many more benefits for me not doing it. And generally, like when you start doing it, you feel inclined to finish it, or just like, you're good to go. Like one person made an analogy, like if you don't want to go to the gym, oh, okay, so here's what you do. Like, you get your gym clothes on, you go to the gym if it's not too far away, get in your car, like, get in the parking lot. If you still don't want to do it, just go home. But generally, if you want to, if you're like, but if you're good to do it, then you just do it. Kind of like the same
Yeah.
thing with me. Honestly, I'm gonna get so much more out of it, emotionally,
Yeah.
if I don't do it. So we're just gonna do it. And usually, like when people start coming, I'm like, hey, I'm already feeling so much better now. Let's
Hmm.
go. There's never been a time in the past 2 years where I'm like, I regret that I hit the live button instead of like sleeping, laying in bed, watching anime.
When you go live, do you ever plan your streams?
In a sense, yeah. It ultimately depends on what I'm streaming. For the most part, they're usually pretty straightforward. For example, if I ever have to do something special, I try to break it down like in a specific order because I like order. I like being in control of things in a sense. For the example, for the laundry stream that we did, which I don't know why my community wanted to do it, but
A
we did it. We
laundry
did
stream?
laundry. Yeah, like so as you can tell, or you pretty much know, I stream in the laundry room, right?
I did not know. No.
Oh, you did not know that? Like, look, there's it's right there. It's right there. People are like, yo, when do we get a launch stream? Like, all right, tell you what. Like, I'm just like, okay, give me 200,000 points at a community goal. We'll do it. We'll make it happen. I'll wash and do a full load of clothing for you on stream, and we'll do Power Wash Simulator. And we'll throw in some DMC, like, free music. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Like, my community got the goal like in half the time, completely like, all right, we washing clothes, boys. I'm like, towels cool? And they're like, yeah, that is fine. So we ultimately did that. And it was honestly like one of the best streams. So like for the majority of it, I usually plan out the game I'm streaming, or I have my Discord vote on what game they want me to play out of like, 3 options.
Yeah.
But usually it's kind of like, hit live, improvise, and try to change some lives. Or days, I guess, not change lives. I don't have that power yet.
I think you do. I think you have way more power behind that than you think. Yeah. Especially being a Twitch streamer. People give me so much unnecessary credit. Some people say, "Oh, thank you for streaming." I'm just like, I want to do this to entertain, and I want to do this because it fulfills me, and I do want to build a community and connect with other people. But do you ever feel that people come in and give you some sort of unnecessary credit that you feel you're not really on board with?
Yeah, in a sense, I would often compare myself to others just based on follower count, average view numbers, et cetera, et cetera. When I was first starting out, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like I'm doing like, so good with dual links and stuff like that. But like subtly, like I might be like, well, this person's doing this, so I need to push harder and push further. But so like when I would have people even at that time to like say like, you're my favorite streamer, I'm like, I appreciate that so much, thank you, but like, is there any specific reason why they like kind of like telling the reasons? Like, oh, but this one other person does it so much better than I do. I'm not that way anymore because I kind of gotten out that headspace because success is very like it's different across the board for everybody. Some people's success might just be like, hitting streamer recording and going live. Some people's success might be hitting an actual number. I've learned that success it's not always going to be like, stagnantly going up. There might be times where it's kind of like a wave, and honestly just dealing with that, it's so much less stressful. Like when some people come and it's like, you definitely made my day and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm glad to hear that. Sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know if I need this much credit, but thank you so much.
Sometimes people might just say it just to try and get on your good side, but I think there
Yeah.
are definitely some people who truly feel that way. I've come in to the same contact as you with like people coming in and saying you're my favorite streamer, and then 3 or 4 weeks go by and I haven't seen them one time since they said that, and I'm like, was I really, or were you just trying to get on my good side with that? Like sometimes you can tell when people are like saying something that's authentic versus not, and you get it an often lot as a streamer.
And I guess it's just kind of like, the whole fact of like, sometimes like they're trying to get in your good side for something,
Hmm.
but I mean, I really don't think I've really had that experience, fortunately. In fact, actually, I know that you do a lot of like, you draw stuff on stream as well, but like some
Yeah.
person actually sent me some fan art of like, my like, percent of them playing like Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool.
They sent you a fan art of you playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah, with them. Like I'm like, this is so wholesome. This actually made my entire day.
Wow.
And it's just like those little things that people do can like have such a huge impact. 2021 has been very much of a challenge for a lot of people, but ultimately it's just trying to like foster that inclusivity and just be there when I can, but without being too much. I think it was like one of those things like where they said like your Twitch streamer's not your therapist. There's also like that expectation boundary to set, just like, check in, hey, are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And then just like, oh, well, good. Just want to check in, make sure you're doing okay.
So now that you've been on the platform for over 2 years, would you say that becoming a full-time streamer would be something that would be ideal, or would you consider this more of a hobby?
If I were to do a full-time streamer, I would want to do everything right. Like I would like to, for one, upgrade out of the laundry room. I would want to not leave it exclusively just to streaming, right? I would like to kind of like what I've been doing as well, like, doing a little bit of like, YouTube and stuff like that, a little bit of TikTok. I like to do several different things at once. Like if I were just doing one thing, I feel like that might facilitate just being stagnant.
Yeah.
It's definitely much a dream. I would love to do that full time. It's like not having a job, but I'm doing what I love to do. And it's just so much fun.
I think that's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of having a job, is doing what you love to do and not even considering it work. On top of that, getting paid for it, as a full-time streamer. That's fantastic. You're fulfilling your own satisfaction and happiness and positivity, and you're providing that fulfillment and developing it into other people's lives.
Like if I could ever get to the point where I could do this full time, or even if not, just like enough to help financially take off some stress on like my wife and everything like that, it's like to me that would just be the dream. The most important thing is just like having yourself, kind of like what you mentioned earlier, people who are like in your community surrounding and supporting you. I'm very much fortunate to have somebody like that in my life.
I've met some really, really good friends on Twitch that I've honestly met personally as well. It's just phenomenal to go about just something on the internet where we could all connect in a deep fashion. We can find long-lasting connections. Just seeing how we can connect together as a whole. Like, connection is everything. Are you a big lurker on other streamers?
Let's say there's a streamer that I really do enjoy, and there's not like a lot of like, chatter engagement going on. I will do my best to be the person to kind of like, help other people start talking and get the conversation going. But I generally do try to lurk in some other streamers that like, just to be able to help with the view count and stuff like that. And also just be there to help support them. Like if you have like a targeted audience, like, like a specific type of audience, like it might be a little bit easier because like, again, people might just jump into it. If you're like doing a variety streamer thing, like it could be a little bit more challenging. And that's just like when either your gameplay has to really shine or you yourself as a content creator has to shine. So if I'm going to stream a game, I'm going to be really, really, really good at this. Or I'm going to be really, really funny and just like, charismatic, upbeat, and just being myself. So
yeah,
as you can tell, I'm not a very good gamer, so we went with the latter.
Like we talked about earlier, you tend to do a lot of voiceovers. Give me a couple of different voiceovers, if you wouldn't mind.
I better have to sit in my wheelchair, man. It's all stuff. I want to be really lazy. I could be like, hey, it's also Kronk from the Emperor's New Groove. Has anybody seen Yzma's Poison? Poison for Cusco. Cusco's poison. I also have a redeem where it's like talk like Kermit the Frog. Okay, my name is Kermit the Frog. Let's do this. Yay! I could also do All Might from like My Hero Academia in a little bit, especially like his buff form when he's like, I am here. Like, have you heard of Goku's dubbed voice actor, Sean Schemmel?
No.
He's like a much more squeaky sounding character. He's more like, you know what they say, Vegeta? You fall off, you get up and like you eat that. Like he's just like really, really dumb.
Would you ever do that full time? Like, would that be something you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah. What I've also been doing with my time away from work is I've been kind of looking more into audio production as a whole and also just like creating voice demos. I gotten a few demos and stuff like together where I have different type of characters. Like I'll have like a burly voice kind of character. Ha! If I wanted to, like you could combine the voice acting stuff and the streaming together. Like there's some fantastic voice actors who do it full time that are also pretty much full time streamers, and they have such a great way and a model of like kind of combining the two. Just some of their mannerisms is actually something I've kind of looked into as well. Like some people may actually like, use their notoriety for like, hey, I'm the voice actor for insert character here. They'll do like streams where they sign fan art and stuff like that, which is really cool.
What sort of hobbies, life goals, motives, what sort of drives Metallic as an individual as well as a streamer?
It's gonna kind of like go back to, I think we talked about this person before, but like, Elliot Holtz, like back in the day when he's like, like becoming the strongest version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And that just kind of like goes like to all aspects, just like, consistently adapting. For an example, for like a hobby, like when I go to the gym and work out, like, that's one, not only making me a healthier individual, stronger, leaner, but it's also like just hammering down like, consistency, determination, like, dedication, willpower, all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
like as long as I'm getting a sense of progression moving forward, whatever I'm trying to do, like to me that's success in a nutshell. So what do you think would be the main reason why people hold themselves back from growth? Do you have any theories?
Definitely their own perspective on how they feel, like on a day-to-day basis. I think that's very important to assess yourself and ask questions to yourself on a daily basis. And it's sort of like the fake it till you make it kind of thing, where you're striving for an energy. So present it, like present it to the world, present that energy to the world, and the world will grant you with less doubt, confidence, if that's the way that if that's the energy that you're granting, the world will get you there. But you have to think it first.
With the whole fake it till you make it concept, like I feel like in some places it does have its place, but sometimes it really doesn't. One place that I used to work at was like it was very much fake it till you make it the first 2 years while I was there. And the thing I didn't like about it eventually, like it became more like fake it till you make it till you become it, where it just becomes second nature. And sometimes that could be it's like a double-edged sword. It can be helpful and it can also be detrimental because sometimes like you may not end up liking what
Right.
you're becoming, but that's like in a very specific type of like situation. I think a lot of times when people hold back growth, like I know personally for me, and I don't mind sharing it, like, and unfortunately, like those what if questions, like what if I fail? What if I put in so much time, energy, effort, finance, capital, and nothing amounts to this, like what I was expecting it to? But ultimately, I'm trying to get into the mindset, like, hey, unless I give it a shot, I won't know.
Right.
And as long as I take something away from it, to me, that is worth its weight in gold.
So I was going to say something along those lines. If you're wondering if something's going to work out for you, like if you're wondering, what if I take this sacrifice? What if I put everything on the line? If that sacrifice succeeds or fails, that's not really the important part, and that's not what you should take away from it. What you should take away from it is the amount of wisdom that comes with it, like the amount of learning and the amount of growth that you can define yourself as. Like looking back at our conversation when I mentioned working out and going to the gym for that 3-month period, like things build, whether you think so or not. Mentally you're building in that 3-month period, and then you stop. Mentally you're learning a lot, because it's not about going after what you feel is a success. It's going after things that you feel like you're like something that your energy presents, and you're set up to either succeed or fail. And like if you fail, you learn, and if you succeed, you're dang doing something right. Like,
and the thing is, we're also still pretty young in our lives. Like we have plenty of times, if we do make those mistakes, we could take the wisdom that we did learn and use that to recover. Like the wisdom thing is just going to be insurmountable, because you can't, like I've checked, you cannot buy that stuff off of Amazon. Like 2-day shipping is not a thing for that.
Age can be a detrimental thing to some people, but if you look at it as more than just like an external source, like age is so much greater when you look at it as an internal drive, as an internal sense of self-love, quite honestly. And that journey to self-love is so hard. But the older that we get, the more tools we have at our expense to either destroy the love that we have or cannot find for ourselves, or engage in the self-love that we have for ourselves. It's just dependent on the perspective. We had talked about that earlier. It's just dependent on how we look at the world every day when we wake up.
Perspective is key.
Everyone is against me, or everyone's out to get me, versus people are here to help, but like they also have their own lives. So it's not always key that they should always be around. But if they're around, like you had mentioned earlier, a person who comes to your stream and then 4 weeks later you haven't seen them, or like a month and a half, and then you go check in, but you don't want to be like too over engaged but not too under engaged. It's that same thing. It's like people are going to fall off the board, but that doesn't mean that they don't care about you. They just have their own lives, and you need to realize that like self-love comes from within, and people do care about you.
That's one of the things too, is like we all have our own lives, we all have our own time zones, stuff like that. So it's also just kind of like going back to like just realizing everybody has their own set agenda, and also like just things that are going on for sure.
Either one of the biggest or the biggest life lesson from an educational standpoint that you've learned in life through streaming?
Putting yourself out there, not being afraid to like put yourself out there. If you don't try to put your name out there or just like stream in general, nobody's gonna know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So like as much attention, like, you know, you should be streaming and stuff like that. You should also make the effort to like utilizing different sources that we have, like, you know, social media, Discords. Hey, I'm going live. I'm going to be playing this game.
Yeah.
You know, you should, you know, if you can hang out, cool. If not, you know, have a great rest of your day. But like just trying to be more out there is probably one of the biggest things that I've done more since I started streaming
Mm-hmm.
versus when I didn't. I would be like, you know, the really good worker, just like doing my own thing, trying to like, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, thanks to streaming and stuff like that, I've been a little bit more like, you know, I'd be more outgoing. I'll be like, you know, more down to like volunteer for extra projects and stuff like that if I see value in it for myself and also the company. I think like the whole networking and also just putting yourself out there and ultimately just being yourself are some of the bigger things that I've taken away from Twitch. That's something that's kind of like transferable to other places in my life. How soon did you know that this was your passion in life? Like, when did you know, like, okay, if there's only one thing I can do for my life, it would be coaching? When did you figure that out about yourself, Juicy?
This last 2 years or 3 years has been quite a transformation for me. So I'd say I've realized it. I always liked it. Like since high school, I knew that I wanted to do personal training and I also wanted to inspire people. So personal training was like perfect for me. As I got into training in general, a couple years obviously of self-exploration had to go by. And then I think I was like 28 and that's when I started streaming actually. I had a huge self-realization that I could be doing more for myself. And as soon as I got into streaming, I started learning a lot of self-awareness about me in general and started learning about my own journey. And then I realized that being where I am right now, like as a coach in general, which is why I opened my own business. I realized that's where my comfort was. And I realized that's where my discomfort was. And like room for improvement, also room for engagement and room to make this world better. But I didn't realize that until about 2 to 3 years ago. And definitely within the last year has been an amount of self-exploration that I couldn't even begin to tell you. I mean, I'd go off on a tangent.
Thanks for sharing. And like the cool thing I like about your story as well, kind of like, well, how I mentioned, like, you know, with Twitch streaming, I can do, you know, Twitch, it can also transfer over to YouTube, it can also transfer over to voiceover and stuff like that. Like all of your stuff also is very like, there's like a connection theme to them all as well. And they all just like kind of connect and work together so well.
It's always been my dream to be a motivational speaker, going into personal training, going into coaching, going into wellness, holistic teaching, going into streaming. It all has a correlation to motivational speaking. It all has a correlation to helping drive other people, to helping drive myself. What sort of energy drives you to be the person that you are?
Monster.
Or monster.
Just kidding.
Where do you think your energy needs you right now?
It needs to be like in a place where growth, like, you know, figuring out what I want to do full time, because one of the things that my most recent employer taught me is that like I kind of want to make sure that what I'm doing next is going to be what I try to set up to be for like, you know, the next 10, 20 years maybe. Like if it could be either on my own accord, like, you know, doing streaming, voiceover, content creation, like that would be the dream. Like let's say the universe is telling me to put that, like, you know, having that energy being pushed forward, but something else as well to like kind of sustain myself at the time being.
Yeah.
That'll be fine too.
Yeah.
Because ultimately for me to kind of like, you know, push for the next stage of like content creation, I need to one, foster the skills I've been learning, like, you know, with through, you know, it's ATM with like, you know, video editing and stuff like that, just figuring out my own style, but also just like need to sustain myself because, you know, finances are a thing. I think for right now, like what's driving me in the energy is just like a pushing of growth, both content wise, but also like, you know, let's figure out the next place I go to might be able to be beneficial in my ultimate overall end goal. Because like if I can find a corporation or a job that will help me in the long run for what I'm trying to do, like it's gonna not only help their productivity and just my drive to work for them better, but also I'll be more happier there and just pursue what I need to do.
Do you have a correlation between streaming and other aspects of your life that sort of like blend together?
I think ultimately, considering I want to do voiceover, I love playing music and I write my own songs and stuff too. The content creation, I think it's just like a sense of like I like to entertain people with content that I create myself. Hopefully, in a sense, like it kind of did like what anime did for me back then, like not only entertain myself, but also motivate me to do what I want to do for like a career and passion.
Sometimes I feel alone on that front where I feel locked inside my head. You know, it's something that I feel a lot of people go through, and it's nice to hear that other people have those thoughts as well and share that sort of energy, which is why I wanted to create this podcast in general, to recognize that I know that I'm not alone. And even when you have those times, or I have those times when I feel locked inside my head and I say I feel like I'm alone on this front, I know that I'm not. And the thing is, like with these podcasts growing, there are other people that I feel similar with, including you, and of course, like everyone else on my podcast, which is why I tend to do these, to relate to other people, to connect to other people, and to share similarities. And especially with streaming and lifestyle, like it's such an easy way to bond with someone else on an engagement level, because everyone who's streaming has a life, right? So it's an easy way to engage with people.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. I've seen some of your podcasts before. You know, I went on live on this one, and I can totally agree and see like that's ultimately like a huge focus as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with, I believe the one I think I remember seeing the most was like the Carpe Diem one.
Yeah.
Like I remember that one the most.
Mm-hmm. Anything that comes to mind?
I think it was just kind of like the whole balance that was going on and just like things of like Twitch and the growth itself. When we were first talking about doing this podcast, like I started watching it right then and there.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I need to prepare for this. I don't know what I'm doing. They're like, oh, it's just a conversation. Like, I think I could do this. I think I've fostered enough between Twitch and also my previous employee. I think I can do this.
Yeah, we've discussed here on today's show. I mean, positivity doesn't mean we're always positive. It's a plethora of emotional standing that we're able to be our own free self and not care about the judgments that other people are presenting to us. Like, we're just going to continue being our free personality. And that's really what positivity is about. Some people who think that positivity is just about being happy all the time, but that's not the reality of it.
Positivity is like, it's just such a huge concept itself. It can't just be narrowed down to like specifically one type of thing. Like there's a lot of like little pieces or finer details to it as well.
We relate to everyone who has had saddening states of mind, who hasn't seemed the most positive, but that doesn't mean you aren't a positive person. Like, positivity is flourishing in those emotional standards that you have for yourself and not resisting. It's not resisting against your own battle with the world.
It's never been easier to pursue like ultimately what you want to do and help facilitate that positivity. Because like, again, you want to be a voice actor, Fiverr, 123 Voices. There's so many things you want to do. You want to be a content creator, Twitch, all that stuff. Like, we definitely live in a situation where we have the most opportunity to be able to pursue our life dreams, like in history, for sure, in my opinion.
We're entering a new age. It's no longer the work till you die concept. It's the be happy to live concept. You'll see a lot of older folk, like my mother and other parents and whatnot, who have a 40-hour a week job, and that's how they lived. But I think we're entering a new era where, yeah, we might have that 40-hour a week job, but also like we have a side hustle. Also, we have things that make us happy. We have things that keep us fulfilled. But back then, it was like work, raise kids, and then you'll have fun when you're 60.
But why does the last 20, 30 years of your life have to be like what you decided what you want to do?
Yeah.
But we're in a situation where it's never been easier. And like when you were kind of like talking about that, I'm like, it reminded me something like that Gary Vee would say. Do you listen to Gary Vee at all?
Oh my God, he's like my number one inspiration, dude.
I
Of
kind of like when
course.
you said side hustle, I'm like, ooh,
Oh,
this man probably listens to Gary Vee.
garage sales. He said
Oh,
so
I
much about garage sales.
like when he was like, my parents live in upstate New York. They have 5,000 when they invest. I'm like, he's like garage sales. I'm like,
Yeah, like
but like
not.
when he kind of like broke it down, I'm like, okay, okay. I mean, I could see what you're singing there, Mr. V.
Yeah, yeah. There's some guy on TikTok that you have to watch. He does a Gary Vee impression, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'm gonna share it with you after stream because
Sounds good.
it's hilarious. He does like the high pitched voice, and then he does this what Gary Vee does, and then he like in his TikToks he doesn't listen to the other person, so it's like a one-on-one with another person, and he doesn't listen. He's like, "Bro, are you on TikTok?" And he's speaking like that. He's
You're
like,
pushing through social media.
"Dude, do you have 7 TikToks a day? If you're only doing 1 TikTok a day, that's not enough. You have to do 7 TikToks a day and garage sales." It's just so funny.
I once went to like I love to go to like Goodwill, Salvation Army, stuff like that because you never know what you're gonna find. But I remember like one time I was like in the book section, I found a sealed Nintendo Power for like $1. I'm like, I'm gonna buy this, and like you buy it. I'm like, oh wait, this thing is sealed. It's going for like $50.
Mhm.
Gary V, I'm living the
Yeah.
dream. But like
Yeah.
you need to like know what you're doing for sure. But like, because like I can tell you, like every garage sale that I've wanted to, like no, I'm sorry, like there's not a lot of things I want to buy for garage. So like I can sell them this chair. I can buy a chair for like $20, sell for 40. The chair having some like wood chips. That's actually part of the feature of the chair. It's an exclusivity model that can be really good, but it's a
Yeah.
one of a kind. So
He's like, "Dude, do you sleep at night? You can take half of that night and you can go out garage sailing?" Oh yeah, let's dip into Yu-Gi-Oh a bit. So you've played a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Links on stream,
I have,
and
unfortunately, yeah. Just
unfortunately, do
kidding.
you have any favorite duel monsters?
So back like in the second version of the show, there was like this one character, and he was playing like something called the Ancient Gears, and so Konami has a history of like they'll release like structure decks, right? And then 10 years later, give or take, what they might do is they might revamp them so they're more playable in today. Because like with Yu-Gi-Oh, like it's always like it's getting like it's power creeping, right? So like it becomes more faster, more progressive, more destructive. And there's this one card that pretty much like once you get to the battle phase and like you declare your attack, you're pretty much gonna win because your opponent really can't respond to anything. And after the attack goes through, it destroys the spell or trap, which is pretty crucial because usually traps and spells can disrupt your plays. So putting yourself in a situation where you can destroy stuff like that, or even our own stuff, because Yu-Gi-Oh is also in a phase where sometimes destroying your own stuff is good. It just has a lot of synergy for that. So
Hmm.
considering I have to control the battle phase it's pretty fun. I like to be in control of that stuff.
And have you always been into Yu-Gi-Oh yourself?
So when it came out here in America, like my friend, who I believe is in your chat right now, by the way, we've been friends for like almost 20, 25, like 22 years. Well, like we both bought like the structures. We've always been playing it. There have been some situations where I might fall out of the game, but I usually come back to it. It's such a great way to be able to meet some really cool people in the community. And also, it's a fun time as well.
What is a great way to achieve followers on stream?
Streaming in the laundry room does pretty good wonders, actually.
Oh, tell me about it. Just turn on that washer and see them viewer counts go up.
Just create something that's different from like everybody else. Personally, for me, when I'm watching a streamer, like if I'm watching somebody play whatever, the main thing for me is just that there's something unique to the experience, whether it be the streamer's personality, what they're doing at the game itself. So creating something, and I think you even talked to me about this a while ago, but like creating something that's unique to you or your own, I guess, niche
Mm.
that other people can vibe and just really enjoy is like what ultimately is going to get you followers for sure, whether it be the personality, what's happening on stream, or just your proficiency in the game.
Yeah. So I've noticed you are doing a lot more YouTube content, a lot more TikTok content. What was the spark for that? Because I don't recall you doing that maybe a year ago.
The main reason why I've been doing much more stuff on YouTube is because one, I want to learn more about like video editing, helping refine my style, and the fact that I no longer have to sacrifice 40 hours a work week. That was a huge thing to kind of like get stuff moving in a faster direction. Ultimately, thanks to that time, I've been able to kind of like learn how to do certain editing techniques and styles faster than I want to do. So mainly just having more time open back up to me has been able to allow me to like kind of like reinvest in what I'm actually really happy with doing.
So if you had to choose one, which would be more significant regarding your streams? Your amount of energy or your upbeat style, or making people laugh? If you had to choose one and you had to sacrifice the other.
I would choose the upbeat positive energy because like when I'm like in that mode, like I'm generally enjoying whatever I'm doing.
So you want to keep that?
Yeah, because like I don't, because like if I was doing something that I just did not enjoy, like eventually it'll start reflecting in what I'm like, the work itself.
Most important medias to have outside a stream.
I feel like mainly it's been Discord, like Discord is super universal. It's a great way to be able to help, like, especially like in the self-promotions, like chat, like text chats. Those are really helpful for like, kind of like, trying to have yourself and your community get like, kind of like, enveloped and created one big one with another content creator. So I'm a huge fan of Discord. You can also do Discord calls, stuff like that. Twitter was good. I've kind of backed off on doing it just for, like, just, going live, stuff like that, though. But I like doing, like, some things like, overall thoughts, like little funny clips.
You got to find out what they're for.
They all have, like, their own purposes and stuff like that. TikTok has also been pretty good, just, like, doing like slight edits, like clips, and giving like their own little funny grab factors. I love YouTube too, just because I record every stream that I do, and then I like upload it to YouTube after the exclusivity period from Twitch's terms of service. And then after that, like I'll just upload it to YouTube, and YouTube has a great function where you can download any video they upload to. So like not only is it a great way for more content for those who missed the VODs after the 14 days, since I'm not partner yet, it's just good to have like as like an archive in case of like, oh, I want to grab some footage from this stream, and like download it and then just like use it for uploads and stuff like that too. So
it's also a way to intensely connect with your community on an emotional level or whatever level you care to connect with. It's a way to drive your community to keep coming back to your Twitch stream. So it's a way to engage and to keep them saying, oh, you know what, talking in Discord was fun, let me go check out what they're doing on the live stream. And it just reminds them that, if you're active every day in there, it just reminds them that you're the person that they want to watch. And
very true.
And that's the reason why they came to your stream in the first place.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast. It was a lot of fun, dude. Thank you for having me.
9th guest, Positivity Podcast on growth and positivity on stream and in your personal life. We will catch you later this week, I'm sure, either in your stream or in mine. It was great talking to you, and we'll see you later.
Likewise.
All right. See ya. That was episode number 9 with MetallicAerox. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to go over to MetallicAerox's channel. Very positive person, very growth-induced person. And go check him out sometime soon. Stay positive, and we'll see you on Monday. Feel free to check out that YouTube channel. Join the Discord if you have not already. Goodbye.
We the most popular stream on the platform. You want a satisfying stream? I'd say we are the norm. It's time to make it great. It's time to brainstorm. Now watch us juicy young wise. It's time to transform.